Greetings and welcome to Connecting with Intent Show. I'm your host Muhammad Awais. On this episode, we have a very special guest. She is the co-founder and partner at Next Chapter Lifestyle Advisor, Marianne Oehser. Marianne Oehser. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Marianne Oehser. Marianne, welcome.
Thank you, Mohammed. It's lovely to be here.
Let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, I worked for the corporate world for a number of people in the marketing area for almost 40 years. And I kind of had retired in the middle of that. Long story about that, but it didn't work very well. And my former husband and I got divorced. And I went back to the corporate world. So when I retired the second time, uh, I knew that I needed to go to something. And I had along the way met my wonderful husband that I've been married to now for 23 years and knew that I wanted other people to have the same kind of a relationship that we had. So I studied relationship coaching for a year before I retired and became a relationship coach. And I really enjoyed working with couples. At that time, we lived in Naples, Florida, and a lot of the couples that were coming to see me had recently retired. And I kept hearing the same thing about their relationship. We used to have a great relationship. And now all we do is bicker and fight. And the common denominator was retirement. So I earned another certification as a retirement coach to help them to make the kinds of adjustments that are required to go from, a being a business owner or a corporate executive or a lawyer or a doctor to being not doing those things. It's a very emotionally draining and difficult, challenging transition. And that's what I do today. I absolutely love watching people go from being afraid to retire to flourishing.
What is your higher purpose in life?
Well, the I'm going to tell you, I'm going to answer that question by reading it for you because I believe very strongly that if we don't have a sense of purpose in our lives are empty. And how many people have you seen that are just fundamentally unhappy and nothing is right with them? And will be willing to guarantee that you will find that they don't feel that they have a sense of purpose, that they're making a difference in some way in this world. And so I have my purpose statement actually written on my wall, and it's exactly what I do all the time. I provide information and guidance to people as they move through the transitions of their third act so that they have fulfilling and meaningful lives. That inspires me to get up in the morning every day and to do the things that I do to help people live those kinds of lives.
That's a powerful purpose. What have been top three greatest challenges that you have had to overcome?
Well, the biggest challenges were not as much business challenges as they were personal challenges. My first one was gaining enough self confidence. When I was just finished my master's degree and was working for a major corporation, I was so unsure of myself that when I talked to people, my eustachian tubes and my ears closed up, and my head, everything I said was ringing in my head. I was so nervous and unsure of myself. And I knew I needed to conquer that. And that took a number of years and a lot of effort, but I did. And today I have no problem with that. I ended up earning a Distinguished Toastmasters Award as a top award that you can get from Toastmasters organization, standing up in front of talking to people. So when you have a challenge like that, sometimes you can often take that weakness and move it to a strength. I think the other one is learning balance in my life. That's something that we teach people all the time to achieve, particularly in their retirement life, but we all need it. And when I was working, it was work and a little bit of time for sleep and a little bit of time for my friends and family. And that's not a very balanced life. And so learning to be able to have a more well-rounded sense of who I am and how I'm investing these precious hours of my life was a lesson that took me a while to learn. And I enjoy helping other people do that today.
What is your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
The failure story happened when I worked for a major airline. And at the time, I was the director of market research. And didn't have a huge department. And it was right about the time when airlines were deregulated. So they had been highly regulated by the government, and therefore there was very little competition. The government told you where you could fly and how much you could charge for it. Well, after the airline industry was deregulated, all of that changed. And the airlines needed to learn how to compete in a very different world. And so my job in market research was important because it was feeding information to people that they needed to know in order to succeed in that. And I wasn't getting the funding. I wasn't getting the money. And I kept writing papers saying, I need this, these are the projects we need to do. Well, there, unbeknownst to me, was a little bit of a behind the scenes power struggle going on between the marketing department and the corporate planning department. And the corporate planning department decided to hire some professors from Columbia to come in and figure out what was wrong with the marketing department. And the report that they ended up writing was that the problem with the marketing department was market research, my department, that we weren't doing the things that we should be doing. And in their report, they cited all of the projects that I had been lobbying for all about that time. And they said that, see, clearly I didn't know what I was doing because I hadn't put forth any of those projects. I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated because that also meant that I was taken out of the position. I didn't, I was beside myself without words as I am right now. But what I learned from that is to face the reality of it without hiding because I was afraid to go into the office. And they had put a little temporary office where I could show up, but I didn't have anything to do. And learning to overcome that embarrassment was a big lesson. But the biggest lesson was that in something as bad as that, there can be a silver lining. There can be something that good came out of it. Because the good that came out of it was when they were making work for me, they assigned me a project that didn't fit into anybody else's organization. And that project grew into a much, much larger one that ended up having a significant impact on changing our marketing strategy. And I ended up winning the marketing division award for that project. So what started out as the most horrible thing in my life turned out to be one of the highlights. So look for the silver lining is what I learned.
What is the most impactful book you have read and what did you learn from it?
That is an almost impossible question to answer because so many books have impacted me. But just off the top of my head, there's a man named Richard Leider who is a real expert in the whole area of purpose. And you see, I didn't think I had a purpose until I read his book. I always thought that if you weren't going to save the rainforests or be Mother Teresa or Gandhi, that you didn't have a purpose. Well, I knew I was never going to make an impact like that on the world. But his book, The Power of Purpose, helped me to see that that's not how it is at all. That each and every one of us has a purpose, has a need to have a purpose. And that purpose is about taking what you're good at and sharing it with other people in a way that is going to benefit them and the world. And so that was perhaps one of the most important. And he's written some other excellent, excellent books, like Who Will I Be When I Grow Old? Which helps you to figure out your identity as we go through this time of transition from who we were in our careers to who we are in the next chapter of our life. Good book, all of them good books.
What are your goals for the next 12 months?
Well, we have some ambitious goals for our organization. We're making some significant changes to a major program that we offer to financial advisors. And we've just been appointed to the faculty for the Exit Planning Institute, which trains financial advisors and lawyers and accountants how to help business people prepare their companies to be ready to be sold and then going through the process of the sale. And our contribution to that is what's next for the business owner so that they have a plan and purpose for what their life is going to look like after they sell their business. And so we're very excited about being part of that. And personally, my goal is to lose a couple of pounds this year.
What advice you will give to younger yourself?
The first one is to learn the art of debate. And what I mean by that is not necessarily that you want to be on a debate team, although that would be great training, but think about the kinds of conversations that we all have these days, and particularly in the United States, which is such a politically charged environment right now. Having the ability to listen confidently to what somebody else's opinion is and have a discussion about it without becoming angry and defensive. And it's taken me a long time to get there because often when I was in those situations, immediately when somebody is talking, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say and I'm defending my position and finding out why they're wrong. But when you understand how to debate, you learn how to listen to other people, to understand what they're saying, and then formulate your position without being necessarily defensive. And that's a skill that I wish I had learned much younger in my life.
How can we support you?
By getting the message to people like your audience about how important it is to plan this next chapter of your life. When you've had a full-on career and you've been successful, that transition is often much harder than people expect that it's going to be. And the word that I wish to get out is that it's okay to recognize that it might be a challenge and that you might need someone to help. I mean, heck, years ago, we figured out that we need personal trainers in order to help with our Keep on an Exercise program. And all good athletes have their own coaches. And in the corporate world today, executive coaches are only intended for the people who are most successful. And so the message I hope that you can get to your audience is that as they move into their next chapter, it's just as important to have that kind of expert coaching so that they can make this a truly great time of their life.
What would you say about your guest appearance on the show?
Oh, it's been terrific. And I admire you for doing this. And I hope that your podcast is very successful in reaching the audience that you intend with a message that I think is very important.
Thank you so much for your kind words. What closing thoughts would you like to share with our listeners?
To approach each new opportunity in your life with an open eyes and recognize that even sometimes if it looks like it's going to be challenging or difficult or a problem, that there's always something good to find. And just when you keep your eyes open and when you have the belief that something good is going to come, then it usually does.
Thank you so much, Marianne, for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of Connecting with the Intent community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Muhammad West. Until the next episode, all good wishes.